TRS clips, that one channel where you get to explore the unexplored realms of knowledge.
So I've had some patients where I've done past life psychotherapy, which sounds insane.
Let's break this down.
Yeah, so I had who had been in psychiatric treatment for 15 years. And so she had like an anxiety disorder and a panic disorder. She had another psychiatrist who had been medicating her and doing psychotherapy with her. So she was basically stable. But the problem had never gone away. So this is kind of sad in psychiatry that sometimes we don't think cure is possible. So when someone has an anxiety disorder, they kind of have it for life. And so this person, this is normal. Like they were married, they were functioning, they had a job, everything like that, but they were just not, they wanted to explore more. So they came to me for a consult, where sometimes if someone is in regular psychiatric treatment, they'll come to me for like a meditative consult. Well, I'll teach them some of these things and hopefully improve their clinical status. So we worked together for a while. She was very interested in developing herself spiritually and things like that. And so one day, she was like, so she was saying, telling me about her anxiety. And then I was like, so what does it feel like? And then I asked her, and this was sort of based on this theory of some scars, which we can talk about. But so I asked her, like, when you have this, what's the first memory of the anxiety and the panic that you have? And then she's like, can I tell you something I've never told anyone before? Because we're talking about stuff like reincarnation. She's curious about some of these things. So I was like, sure. And I was surprised by the statement because she's had a psychiatrist for 15 years, very good psychiatrist. She's had a great relationship with them.
Was she Indian origin?
No.
Oh.
Yeah.
See, this makes it so much more interesting. Go on.
Okay. Yeah. So that's why she was curious about this stuff. So I said, sure, like, tell me. And she's like, I have this, when I have a panic attack, here's what it feels like. I'm underneath the floorboards. I'm underneath the room. I'm hiding underneath the room. And there's booted feet on top. And I know if I make a single sound, the people with the heavy boots will hear me and they'll find me. And if they find me, it's game over. I cannot be found. So she describes this very, very vivid experience. The only problem is it never happened to her. She never had this happen to her. And so then what we started to do is work on that. So I sort of treated it like a trauma. Like imagine that a patient had a trauma and we're going to do the same trauma-oriented treatment, but just for an event that never actually took place. And as a psychiatrist, we have to be careful here. This isn't proof of past life. So the conclusion that we kind of came to was that she believes she was alive in Nazi Germany and she was hiding from SS officers and that she was like Jewish in a past life. And that somehow that trauma had stayed with her. And so we processed that and then she was fine. And then she like stopped medication, and then she was like kind of quote unquote cured. I don't know if maybe that's fake, but.
According to her, in her past life, do you think she was finally caught by those SS officers?
I don't know. So all she has from that life is that image, even if it's a life. Now we have to be careful here because just because she has this memory doesn't mean that there's past lives. So this is where a lot of people will make a jump that I don't make, which is that maybe she was 3 years old and she watched a movie about Nazis hunting people. And she was traumatized by it because it creates powerful emotion, right? 3-year-old is very scary, right? So there's what we call a differential diagnosis. There are multiple explanations. This is not proof of past lives, which a lot of people will jump to. Here's what my experience is as a clinician. When we treat these as real, it's very helpful. I'm not saying it is real, but it's like, because I don't know. And we talked about that, right? Like maybe this didn't really happen to you. But what I do know is real is in your mind, this memory is there. Whether it comes from a movie and you internalized it, or it comes from a prior life, but exists in your mind right now is a psychic complex. And that's something that we have to unravel because that energy is there in some form. And I use the word energy loosely, but there's some mental thing. There's some pent up emotion. Yeah. And so the interesting thing is once I did that with her, she got way better. She's convinced it's a past life. I'm convinced it's a past life, but the medical degree within me says, just because you're convinced, that's me being convinced. That's not the same as it being true, right?
Yeah.
Now I've opened an interesting door because sometimes when patients come to me, and they're not getting better, I'll ask them some of these kinds of questions. I won't go directly to past lives. I won't share this theory with them because I could be biasing them, right? So I'll sort of open the door to that dimension. Sometimes I'll ask, do you have any memories that you think are a little bit weird, or any memories that didn't happen to you? And some people are really confused by the question. They're like, what do you mean memories that didn't happen to me? And like some people, maybe 10 to 20% of people are like, yes, how did you know that? I'm getting goosebumps. No one's ever asked me that. How do you know that? What's going on? Because they live with this. They have this very vivid experience and they think they're crazy. And they certainly aren't going to tell anyone else about it because it's insane. And there's some really interesting research about this as well. There's a guy out in Israel who did a lot of really cool research on epigenetic inheritance.
If your parents have gone through an experience which is very strong, positively or negatively,
Yeah.
it'll affect your gene expression as well.
Absolutely perfect, right? So now it's kind of interesting because maybe it's not an Atman that carries experience. Maybe there's some amount of inherited memory and we are just subjectively experiencing what's in our epigenetic configuration. And there's absolutely piles of evidence that we can inherit memories. Happens all the time to every person and organism on the planet. We call it instinct.
Yeah.
Instinct is knowledge that is in your genes. So human beings, like babies, are instinctively afraid of certain kinds of animals like reptiles, right? So like these are like ancestrally like our predators. So if you see a snake, you're going to be creeped out by it. We're not ancestrally afraid of dogs, right? We're not ancestrally afraid of cats even, right? Even if they're like dangerous cats, like maybe you'll feel fear because it's large. But like, so we all have instinct, which is basically memory that is encoded in our genome and our epigenetics.
Thank you for consuming this clip, दोस्तों. अगर ऐसे ही और clips explore करने हैं तो इस channel के playlists को ज़रूर explore करना.